Hello, and welcome to another episode of Soft Girl Strong Mind. So, last episode, I ended with talking about me not having a voice growing up, and I feel like it's something a lot of eldest daughters go through, but we never really give it a name or we never really talk about it. So, growing up, I was very shy. I was very polite, I was very respectful, which is all traits that eldest daughters have. But looking back at it, I don't think I was necessarily shy. I just didn't have a voice and I was conditioned to not speak. And I was in so many situations where I knew I was right, but I physically couldn't speak up for myself. Like I physically couldn't defend myself. The words just wouldn't come out of my mouth. And I don't know if other cultures have this, but in a Hispanic household, there is a big emphasis on respect. You have to respect your elders. You can't talk back and you have to be obedient. And on the surface, this sounds like a good thing. You're teaching your kids respect. But what it actually turned into for me was silence. Because I remember growing up, and anytime I would try to defend myself, it was seen as talking back. And if I talked back, then I would just get into more trouble. So, what do you learn as a kid? You learn to stay quiet, even if you're right, even if there is a misunderstanding, and even if you felt hurt. You just learn to internalize everything and just stay quiet. And as you can see, this quickly turns into suppressing your emotions, suppressing your thoughts, suppressing your feelings, suppressing your opinions, even if you know you're right. So as a kid, I became easy to deal with, not honest. So I remember this one time, I was probably like in the third or fourth grade. So, at that age, you don't work, you don't have money, you don't have like an allowance. So when you wanted something, you would trade for it, right? So this girl, she really wanted this pink little purse that I had. And, we're going back and forth on like what she could trade me for it. And she ended up telling me that she'll trade me this DS games, which if you don't know what a DS is, it was like a game console back in the days. So yeah, she told me she'll trade me this DS game for my little pink purse. Again, we're kids, so we obviously don't know that the value is off. Obviously, the DS game is worth probably a lot more than like this pink bag. I mean, this pink purse that I have. But so we traded. We both thought it was fair at the time. Again, we're in third or fourth grade, so we don't have a concept of like money. Point is, we traded. The next day, this girl comes back with her mom and sets a meeting with my parents and lies and says that we didn't trade, that like she let me borrow the DS game and that like she needs it back. And I remember my parents were like, "Is this true?" And they looked at me. I had the perfect opportunity to be like, "No, we traded for it and she has my pink purse." Like, I have no problem giving back her DS game, but I need my purse back. But I remember sitting there and like, I couldn't speak up for myself. I couldn't defend myself. Like, the words just wouldn't come out of my mouth. And like, so I just sat there and like, I just stayed quiet. And the worst part was I had to give back the DS game and she kept my purse. And I remember feeling so frustrated, not because I didn't get the DS game and not even because she didn't give me back my purse. I was just so frustrated that in the moment where I had the opportunity to defend myself because I was right, I couldn't. Like, I didn't feel allowed to speak. And it makes sense growing up in an environment where every time I tried to defend myself to my parents, I would get punished. So over time, I started to learn this dangerous pattern of speaking up leads to punishment and that keeping the peace is more important than telling the truth. And let me tell you, this pattern doesn't just stay in childhood. That shit follows you straight into adulthood. Like one time I was arguing with my dad. I was fully like 22, moved out of the house. I had like graduated college at this point. And, me and my dad were having an argument. But I will say, my dad, typical Hispanic, stubborn, prideful, macho, traditional Hispanic man. So just to paint you a picture. So I'm arguing with my dad and, I'm older now, so I'm not backing down, but he's not backing down either because again, Hispanic dad, stubborn, prideful and very macho. So the argument was getting really, really heated. And he goes, "Shh, Ashley, I'm your dad. Do not disrespect me." In my head, I was like, yes, you are my dad. No, I'm not disrespecting you. Have this argument with me. Learn to have an argument with me. Like when you're arguing with your friends, you don't go, "Shh, I'm older than you. Don't disrespect me." No, like I'm not a kid no more. Like learn how to lose an argument. So at this point, things were getting really, really heated, and my mom had to step in, and she just tapped me on my shoulder. She was like, "Ashley, just let it go. Be the bigger person and just let it go." And I was like, "Okay, fine, I'll be the bigger person." So I like let it go, right? And it wasn't until a few years later that I started thinking about that situation and that argument. And I realized it wasn't about me letting it go. It was about me repeating what I was taught growing up. Because growing up, I kept watching my mom be the bigger person, letting it go, keeping the peace, staying quiet, putting her head down every time an argument got heated between them. So that's what I learned to do, and that's what I kept doing, just letting it go, even though I knew I was right. But then it made me think, like, this whole time I thought, my dad is this stubborn, macho, traditional, Hispanic, hard-headed, prideful man. After reanalyzing that whole argument and that whole situation, it made me think like maybe my mom has been enabling him by putting her head down and not defending herself and staying quiet, even though she knows he's wrong. Listen, I don't know what came first, the chicken or the egg, if it was my dad being stubborn first or my mom enabling it. But as you can see, it's this perfect cycle of my dad being stubborn and prideful and my mom just, being a doormat. And it's no wonder why they're so compatible. And I know for a fact that my dad is not the only stubborn, prideful, macho Hispanic dad that can't lose an argument, can't lose a fight, and has to be right, even though he knows he's clearly wrong, let alone apologize for anything. So that caused a lot of trauma and a lot of issues. And obviously, it's like, what are you showing your daughter? You want to show your daughter to put her head down every time a man can't lose an argument or is too prideful? Like, come on. But anyways, back to not having a voice. So this is where it gets tricky because obviously when you let things go or you're the bigger person, it could be seen as a good thing. You seem very mature. You seem very calm. You don't argue. You're very respectful. But underneath all of that, you're abandoning yourself. So when you grow up in an environment where defending yourself or speaking up for yourself leads to punishment, your brain starts learning that your voice isn't safe. So instead of expressing yourself, you start suppressing yourself. And over time, this turns into people pleasing, fear of conflict, difficulty setting boundaries, avoiding confrontation, struggling to express your needs, over explaining yourself, or not explaining yourself at all, just to name a few. And unfortunately, I feel like a lot of us go through this, but we never really sat down and thought about where it came from or how much it's shaping us. Because this is not just about being respectful, this is about silencing yourself. And unlearning all of that is a whole other journey that I will share with you guys in future episodes. So stay tuned. But I do want to take the time to say that, our parents are not bad parents, because I fell into the cycle of almost resenting my parents after learning about conditioning and seeing that a lot of the reasons why I am the way I am come from childhood. So it was very easy for me to blame my parents for everything. And that became a very unhealthy mindset. So I want to share these realizations with you guys because it helped me learn why I was the way I was and find these things out so I can unlearn them. I really hope you don't fall into the cycle that I did of like hating my parents. You also have to remember that it's their first time on earth. So just be easy on your parents. They did the best they could with what they had, and a lot of the traumas that they might have inflicted on you were probably things that were inflicted on them. So just be easy on your parents, please. So that's a little something to think about if you're the eldest daughter from immigrant parents and you feel like you can't really defend yourself, or you don't really have a voice, or, you people please and you avoid conflict, all those things. So you can start thinking about like your childhood and where you felt silenced, and know that your voice was just suppressed, and it doesn't have to be that way no more. Okay, so next episode, I'm going to be talking about this whole sacrifice your parents made, especially if you're a first generation kid. And I am going to ruffle some feathers because I have a unpopular opinion about that. So definitely keep an eye out for next episode, and I will see you guys next time.